Hi everyone, this is Master Matt, and today we're going to be going over the back roll, which is another one of our basic nakbop or break falling techniques that we practice in Hapkido. Just like the front roll, this is one of the simplest forms of our rolling techniques, in this case practicing for when we have to fall backwards or are pushed backwards or trip backwards for whatever reason. It's a little more dangerous than the front roll because this time you don't get to see where you're going, but the good news is the technique here is probably the simplest to get. If you do have trouble getting your body over on the front roll, usually people have an easier time with the back roll. But just because this is simple and easy doesn't mean that it's not important and not necessary for us to learn. All of our more advanced falls, rolls, or flips in Hapkido are going to stem from these basic techniques, and we really need to make sure that we hammer these down. But today we're just going to focus on this simple back roll. So first up in our back roll is our positioning. So I'm going to be rolling this way behind me. So I'm going to start by taking my arms and placing them in an X position over my chest. That's going to prepare them to do the slap, which I'm going to go over in a second. And the good thing about this roll, as I was talking about, with the front roll, you kind of have to do it all at once. There's no middle ground to stop. In this roll, you can break it down into stages, and you can really do it as slowly as you want until the very end. But you can really get the timing down of everything and get yourself comfortable before you do anything full force. So we're going to start slow. I'm going to cross my arms and I'm going to bend my knees in front of me in a squatting position. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll. I'm not going to jump or fall. I'm just going to nice and easily roll onto my back. And as soon as I feel my back hitting the ground, I'm going to take my palms, not the backs of my hands, but the palms, and I'm going to slap the ground with my arms outstretched, which I'll show you. So I'm going to roll back nice and easy, and I'm going to slap the ground. Now what's important here is that I time this at the same time, so you have to practice this. Time when I feel my back hitting the ground is when I want to be slapping the ground. The reasons that we slap the ground, one, what we don't want is all the impact. Say you're doing this much faster or higher. We don't want all that impact to be in our tailbone or in our spine. So what we're doing with the slap is distributing all that energy out from our body into the ground so that we don't take as much impact on our body, and that's reducing the risk of injury. Also, it's going to naturally lift your spine off the ground as you curve your shoulder blades in, and that's just going to protect it even more from the impact. And this is a basis for any of the flips and anything that you're going to be doing in Hapkido with nakbop. This principle of slapping as soon as you hit the ground is very important. And the back roll is the best way to practice this because it's really risk-free because you can do it at a very slow rate. And then once you get the hang of that, then you can apply it to all your other rolls. But again, as many times as you need to do, you can practice this back slapping motion. And once you get that, what we're going to do after that is I'm going to take my legs and I'm going to throw them. Now this is important, not over my head, because then I'm going to be curving my neck, and that's a risk for injury. I'm going to be throwing them to the side of my head. Ideally, you want to practice both sides, but to start, you can pick the side that is easiest or natural for you. And this part you do kind of have to do in one motion because you need the momentum from the roll. But I'll show you slow. I'm going to be slapping, and I'm rolling with my legs behind me so that I can stand back up into my position. So again, slow. What I'm doing is crossing my arms, bending my knees here, leaning back, nice and easy. Once I hit the ground, slap, and then rolling over, and then coming back to my feet. Okay, so now we're going to do that a little bit faster so you can see the full roll in motion. So I'm just going to drop, slap, and then I'm coming up quickly. I'll also show you one head on so you can see this from this angle. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bend my knees, drop back, slap, and then throw the legs over the head and then pop back up. So some common things I'll see with this roll, for one, are the timing between the back hitting the ground and the slapping. You could go too early, and extreme cases you'll see people try to catch themselves, and that's something you definitely don't want to do because that's going to put pressure on my wrists, and that can really injure me. But even still, you can see slapping a little early, and that's not what you want with timing, as well as late with my back hitting the ground first and then me slapping. That would defeat the purpose of the slap. So this is just something you have to practice with your body until you get your own timing down, until you really feel comfortable that both of the impacts are simultaneous. You also notice that some people have the tendency to slap with the backs of their hands, like the knuckle side, and you don't want to do that because that's all bone here. You don't have all this cushion in the palm of your hand that you would have in the palm of your hand. When you slap with this back side of your hand, you can still be distributing your impact, but you can severely damage or crack or break the bones in your hand when you do that. So I always tell students to think like they're high-fiving the ground, and that seems to stick most of the time. And some people do struggle with getting their legs over the side of their head or just over in general, so sometimes they'll be practicing here and they can lift their legs, but they kind of just drop off to the side. And that can be a factor of just doing it too slow. Sometimes you just don't have the ability to generate enough force to get your body over. And if you can't do that, then I would just suggest practicing as comfortably as you can to get to this point until you're solid with that. And then I would just try to introduce some velocity, so some speed. Try to do it faster. That way you can generate more momentum into throwing your legs over the side of your head. So again, take your time with it, but once you do feel comfortable, then you can go all the way from your standing position. You might even be able to take a couple steps back to generate momentum. You drop, and that should create enough momentum for you to get over the side of your head. And lastly, I know I mentioned this, but you do not want to be rolling over the top of your head here, because one, my head is so much further out than my shoulders, so it would take a lot more force to get my legs over. When they go to the side, it's just much easier. But two, it just would put so much pressure and curl my neck once I get all the way over. There is a stretch when you take your legs and pull them over your head, but that's controlled. This is more a quick motion. So you do want to make sure that you're throwing your legs to your side. If your body tends to want to do that, then you just have to fight that and try to condition yourself to know you have to go to either side, whatever side's more comfortable, and then I suggest once you have that side down, then move on to the other side so you can go really either way. Okay, that was it. That was a very detailed explanation of what I normally see when I'm teaching the back roll. But just in general, practicing these rolls and these techniques is just very important because when you really have to use them, if they're not part of your muscle memory, then you can't fabricate it. So you need to practice them in a controlled environment so that you can be as comfortable as possible when the environment becomes not controlled. As always, practice safe. Practice under the supervision of an instructor if you can. Always use something soft when you're practicing your rolls because that's the best way to ensure your safety. But as always, if you have any questions or concerns about this, you can always let me know. Thank you guys for watching and keep training.